a very interesting literary figure, and he a prolific writer. And here we will see some of Tetouan's manuscripts from the private libraries of Tetouan, especially from the Dawood library, here on this CD-ROM on the traditional arts of Tetouan. There's a commentary, but I have, because you cannot hear the commentary and my commentary at the same time, but these are some of the manuscripts from the Dawood library. We selected them for their beauty and their specificity and their world cultural dimension, I would say, because they're very unique. This is a 19th century, for example, manuscript by Mhammad Benaboud. This is the book I told you about. Yeah. And they're completely different from each other. This is some of these manuscripts are, for example, on Andalusian music, like Kunnash al-Hayk. There's a copy of the Quran which is 600 years old from Al-Andalus, which is here. So, you know, there's a 19th century, yeah, this is it. It's a marriage contract from the 19th century. It's absolutely beautiful, by Mhammad Benaboud. He certainly had the time to do it. Sami al-Wazani wrote, for example, the first autobiographical novel in the history of Moroccan literature. Before finishing, I would like to show you some parts of our this is the Quran, I think. Yeah, it's about 600 years old, and it's written on deer skin. Sami al-Wazani was a very interesting figure because he wrote an autobiographical novel which reflects his life in the Brotherhood of Al-Harraq. This is the poetry presented in geometric forms. It's very interesting. So the history of Tetouan is very strong from the cultural point of view, because of you can say that many of these scholars were educated in the old Andalusian traditional style. But beginning from the first part of the 20th century, you had very strong cultural ties with Spain and Europe on the one hand, and with the Middle East on the other hand. So what happened during the first part of the 20th century is you had different groups of intellectuals who were formed and related to different cultures. So, and also the presence of Spanish culture in Tetouan over a period of more than 40 years was also very, very important, because it enabled many Tetouanese to open themselves to the world, because the character of the Tetouani tends to be very this is our website on the internet, and the address is medina.tetouanasmir.org. And these are some of the pictures from the houses of Tetouan. For example, this is a 19th century house, which, okay, I'll show you two houses so you can see the difference. This is the house of the Naqsis. So here you have about 8 pillars, and you have some features where you can only find in Spain, and so on. So it's, let's see, sorry. No. Yeah, this is the Naqsis house. So you can see it resembles some of the Spanish monasteries. The mosaics are not original. They were added after it was restored. So compare or contrast the simplicity here. These are some of the more extravagant houses, for example, of this is the Naqsis house. So as you see, it's whitewashed. There's a fountain in the middle. The mosaics were added, but you have some features like these, you know, which you find in some of the Christian monasteries, but you don't find them in Tetouan. This is the Brisha house. This is a traditional late 19th century house, where you find, for example, the introduction of many elements, such as mosaics and other elements. This is a traditional room in Tetouan for receiving visitors. And as you can see, there are many elements. Here you have typical Tetouani embroidery. Here you have some carpets which were imported from England, from Manchester, especially for these Tetouani sofas. So that's the commerce. You have some mirrors which were probably imported from France or Italy. Here you find some Chinese plates and vases. It's very interesting. There's a historian of art from Tetouan, and Dr. Nadia Razini, who graduated from Oxford University. She wrote a very interesting article of how this Chinese and especially Japanese 19th century ceramics were exported to Europe, and then the Tetouanese would buy them and use them in their houses. So you have quite a lot of 18th and 19th century plates and vases from Japan. Or I took a Japanese scholar to a house and I told him, we have some China plates. He said, no, that's a Japanese plate. And the reason is that during the 19th century, the Japanese began to reproduce Chinese plates in large quantities to export them to Europe. And then from there, some of the richer merchants of Tetouan would buy them and use them to decorate these houses. So even though the architecture is very typical Tetouan, for example, why is the architecture of Tetouan different? Because for a foreigner, it's a Moroccan house, whether it's in Fez or whether it's in other parts of Morocco, it's the same type of architecture. But that is not the case. For example, look at these tiles. There's about 8 or 9 reasons why it's different from that of Fez. One, the pieces are extremely small. Each one of them is small. I'm just going to bring tiles. As an example, I could speak about wood or carved or painted wood or other traditional arts, but they're very small. Look at this little piece, for example. It's the size of this finger there. And each one is installed. So the construction material from which it is made is different from that of Fez. It's local mud or whatever. Each little piece is baked individually. And then, after it's brought out, this coloring is made of different mixture of different minerals. And then it is reintroduced into the oven, which can be 800 degrees or more, and it is baked. Each little piece is baked individually. The result is, since this coloring product is a liquid, it is like it gives a curved form once it is baked. So it is very smooth, because it used to be liquid, thick liquid, and then it hardens after it's baked. Because it's not completely flat, it reflects light in different directions. Because let's say like this, if it was flat, then the light would be reflected. But if it's carved, you know, it's reflecting different, and that's why it shines. That's why a diamond is so unique, because it reflects light. Okay, so which one? This is the reason. One more characteristic of the Tetouani tiles is that you use the same colors, but in different places. The number of the colors used is very limited. It's white. This is dark brown, almost black. You have blue, and you have this brownish color, light brownish color. But it's used in different ways. For example, here you have this geometric form. This part is, let's say, brown, and here it's blue. Here it's the opposite, where there's brown here and there's blue here. See, so it's the same geometric figure, but the colors are used in a variety of ways. That's another point. One more point is that because each piece has been baked individually, and because the heat in the oven is not the same, even though the initial colors were the same, once they are baked, you have a variety of different shades of the same color. Like here you have this brownish color is not as dark as this one. Okay, so you know the same pieces would be the same color, but you have different shades. This is slightly, for example, darker than this piece. So it's very interesting. One more point: the geometric designs or forms are specific to Tetouan. You don't find this decoration, this in any other city in Morocco. It's typically Tetouani. In a very small area, you can find up to 7 different geometric designs. Like, for example, this is different from this one is different from this one. Here you have, you know, this is different from this one. And I once accompanied the director of the Brazilian Cultural Center here at Washington for a tour in some of the private houses in Tetouan. And when we finished, I told him, "Did you like the tour?" He said, "Yes, I really enjoyed it." I told him, "What is it that captured your imagination more?" He said, "The tiles." And because these are some of the samples, but there are many, many others. Like, for example, you have the entire floor of the courtyard. In some cases, I'll try to find one here. Yeah, like, for example, it's not very clear, but all these are tiles. And in some other pictures, so these are some of the later, very beautiful. I have a very impressive collection. So the tiles, as far as the construction materials are concerned, here, for example, notice the variety of the mosques. Limestone and brick is very important in this one, but here, for example, you find another one which is completely different. Because they were not built during the same century. That's why they're so different. But unfortunately, there isn't much information concerning this. This is tiles on a fountain, for example. You see the variety of the designs here. So I think I've spoken over my 45 minutes, so I would like to thank you. I didn't stick to the text because I thought it would be more interesting to do it this way. And there were many ideas which I wrote and which I did not express and which you can be able to see. But I would just like to conclude very briefly with a few ideas. The first idea is that the city of Tetouan and other Moroccan cities, North Moroccan cities, are going through a phase of economic development, especially in the field of urbanism. You have these enormous, ugly buildings appearing right and left, and the extension of the city in the last 5 years has grown more than it had during the last 500 years. And so on, and so people are making a lot of money because there's also money from the smuggling activities, from the drug traffic activities, from the bureaucratic, legal and illegal, let's say, activities. So there's big money and there's immigration, and not everybody is as interested in libraries and culture as we are. But in the Tetouan Asmir Association, we have, which was created in 1995, so we are about 11 years old, we stress the importance of the Medina, because we know that the developers are going to develop the coast because they're going to want to make a lot of money. We know that they're going to develop the new areas because they're going to make a lot of money. We know that they will perhaps enter the Ensanche, the Spanish town, which we also defend because it's unique to have a Spanish city built and very well conserved over the past 50 or 60 years. But the Medina of Tetouan for us is the most important part of Tetouan, and it is because it reflects our cultural heritage, our cultural identity, and not only for us but for the visitors who have a sensibility for culture. I think they're all happily surprised by what they see. I'm sure some of the people here did not expect to see what they saw. And the ties of Tetouan are also very strong. Like when I was in Peru, I visited the city of Cusco, and I was surprised to see that the wooden door of the cathedral there is very similar to many of the doors that you find in Tetouan or in Al-Andalus. And downtown Peru, the colonial section is very similar to some of the things that... And I gave a series of lectures at a private university there called the Catholic University, and there were times when the discussion lasted for as long as the lecture, and I'm speaking about a 2-hour lecture. People are fascinated by Al-Andalus as the source of their own culture, because because it is an important or one of the main sources of the Spanish culture. And I was very, very surprised by the great interest that I found there. So this is the world cultural dimension. The specificity is very important because it reflects the authenticity of the city. And we think in the association, we sometimes agree, sometimes we disagree with the local authorities, especially the city council people, that it is important to start with the conservation and of many of these monuments. Like, for example, and we are not just talking in a passionate way. We send our students to do research in the Medina. Like, for example, during the past 5 months, I sent 2 girls to do a study of the biggest square in Tetouan, which unfortunately is the biggest and the ugliest square because you have so many peddlers and so on. But they did a field study, and the conclusion was that those peddlers would very much like to go elsewhere, provided the city council would help them find something which would serve as their living. Because the city council always says it's very difficult to touch this square because it's a social problem. If you tell these people to go somewhere, they will cause trouble, but that is not the case. And one of the interesting conclusions is that those poor people have a consciousness, they're fully aware of the cultural importance of the city, and they said, we don't like this square as it is, but we need to eat, so if you give us a job outside of the city, we'll be very happy to leave, and then you can do whatever you should do with the square. The other project, which our association thinks is very important from the social point of view, because we think that the square should be rehabilitated from the social point of view because it will be able to, but the local authorities, they say we can't touch it from the social point of view because this might create a security problem, but we say no, the present situation is what creates the security problem. The other point is that of the cemetery. The cemetery, we have an Islamic cemetery, a Christian cemetery, and a Jewish cemetery. The Spaniards found financial support from the European Union, and they rehabilitated their cemetery. And even though you don't have many Spaniards who die in Tetouan and are buried there, although one was buried last week because she had bought a grave there, or her father had bought a grave there. He's one of the old Spanish Tetouans. You have many Spaniards who were born and raised in Tetouan and who are as proud of their belonging to Tetouan as we are. And Jews as well. We have Jews from Latin America who come, and for example, I had one university student saying, you know, could you please take me to see the Medina and the Jewish quarter, because my grandmother was born there, and she told me about, you know, the days when she used to live in Tetouan and all that. And he was really, really excited. And the same thing, I remember presenting some pictures of the Insanchi of Tetouan, and one in Barcelona, and one, where you have a lot of people from Andalusia living and working in there. And one lady burst out in tears. We told her, you know, what's the problem? This is a very nice church. She said, no, it's because I was married in that church. She hadn't seen it for about 40 or 50 years. We think that the Islamic cemetery is in a terrible state. Unlike the Spanish, the Christian cemetery, the Jewish cemetery, we only have about maybe 15 Jews in Tetouan now, but there are others in Ceuta. They are there basically to take care of the belongings of the Jewish community. But their cemetery is very interesting because even though it's closed, but it's well protected, and there's a guard, and because their tombs have a very unique shape. It's unique. The Jewish cemeteries of Tetouan and Shawan are unique because some of the people buried there were expelled from Al-Andalus. So they're very old, and they maintained, and they're very nice and unique shapes. As far as the Islamic cemetery, we have a discussion with the city council. Maybe I'm not a bad scholar, but I don't think, even though I have a BA in political science, I'm not a very good diplomat, because a good diplomat never states what he thinks. So we tell them, here's what we think should be done. You know, things like you should build a wall, like you should clean the garbage where there's garbage. The graves should have a uniform shape. We think that you should have some lighting and other things. You should have some toilets. It's quite obvious, and so on. But they consider that people from an association should mind their own business because they know how to administrate the city. And so we have been very patient, but there has come a point when we say, well, we spoke to you 2 years ago about this, and, you know, where's you know, you said yes. You know, so it's a very sensitive issue. The third project, which we think is very important, is that of the creation of a museum of the Mtamar or the Masmorras, because this museum, this church and prison is located in the heart of the city, so anyone who wants to see it from any part has to cross half of the city to get there, and that's one way to bring many people inside. And it's only 150 meters, but they're going about it the wrong way also because they have other priorities. The fourth very important thing is the organization of commerce. You can't have visitors if many of there was a time when these peddlers used to occupy the streets, but now it's the shopkeepers who have their own peddlers in order to prevent other peddlers from occupying the streets. And this is obviously the business of the city council, not us. And so, you know, we have some proposals like the restoration of many houses. And I have sent my students, and they have given me a detailed description of over 50 houses and their state, whether it's a good state, whether they're falling to pieces, whether, you know, and so on. So I think I have spoken for more time than I should as I say, the reason is for about 30 years I used to stutter, and when I have been more or less cured, now I speak too much in order to make up for that last time. Thank you very, very much for your patience.
Thank you very much for your talk. You've given us just a taste of the architecture, the calligraphy, the corridors, the manuscripts, and so on of Tetouan. So we're all hoping to visit there, and we really look forward to working with you in the